All right, welcome to today's class on DocuSign 201. My name is Leah with Scott Leroy Marketing. In today's class, my goal is to give you a little better of an idea of the extra DocuSign tips and tricks to make your DocuSign experience a little more efficient, a little more effective. So to do so, we are going to start by logging into Command. So if you could join me by coming up to agent.kw.com. to go ahead and log into Command. And that's another great thing to bookmark, to add to your bookmarks bar. If you don't already have that as a KW agent, you'll be going to Command daily, typically to access your database, all your transactions, and so forth. So again, that's agent.kw.com. You can always star that. There will be a star here if you don't already have it in your bookmarks bar to add that right away. All right, we can go ahead and log in. All right, if you have any trouble remembering your login and password for Command, that is the same as your MyKW login. It's the same login as your Kelly app. If you have any trouble with it, there is a forgot password option, but just a heads up, typically the username is something like your first initial, last name, and then possibly a number. So it can be your KW email, but if that's not working for you, it's probably because your username is different. So feel free to try first initial, last name, and then possibly a number. If you have any trouble logging in or resetting your password, shoot us an email. I'm going to put our email in the chat. It's support@scottleroymarketing.com. We can help you reset your password. And really, anytime you guys need to get a hold of us, our email address, which again is in the chat, is the quickest way to get a hold of us. Our goal is to reply to all of your emails between like 5 and 15 minutes. Okay, be a little gentle on that time frame, but just know we have a whole team of our most knowledgeable staff answering your emails to get you a really fast answer to your tech issue. So any obstacles you run into, if you need help with something, shoot us an email. We're more than happy to help and set you at least on the right path. Now, you will be accessing Command to start all of your transactions, and we won't be doing that in detail today. So if you are new to Command with DocuSign and starting your transactions, please make sure to watch the DocuSign 101 class first, which I did include in the chat. All right, and I'll link that if you're watching this class recorded. I will link anything I mentioned that I put in the chat. I'll link that in the description below of the YouTube video. All right, but anytime, it's really, really important that you guys understand that anytime you go to start a transaction in Command, that it is started in Command, okay? In order to create the room in DocuSign, that does need to be created in Command first. And I'll outline that for you guys today, but again, full details will be in the DocuSign 101 class. So real quick, let's make sure that your DocuSign account is linked up to Command, because that is a really huge step to using Command with DocuSign. So if you could quickly follow me to click your name on the top right of Command, to click on Settings. So again, that is your name on the top right of Command to access your settings. And that will take you to all of the apps that you currently have linked up to Command. So you do want to see DocuSign towards the top of the list, because that will show your connected apps at the top first. So you do want to see DocuSign showing a status of connected. If you're not seeing DocuSign towards the top, no worries, just scroll down. And if you are seeing DocuSign as not connected, you can simply click Connect Account to go ahead and link that up right away. Now, just a heads up, previously created DocuSign accounts, like outside of the KW technology, if you had paid for a DocuSign account in the past years, unfortunately, that is not compatible with Command. So DocuSign, a KW DocuSign account would need to be created under your KW Command account, and we're more than happy to do that for you. So if you have any trouble linking up your existing DocuSign account or creating your DocuSign account from Command, please feel free to shoot us an email, support@scottleroymarketing.com. All right, so I'm just going to briefly overview the steps to starting a transaction in Command, and then we'll be hopping over to DocuSign. And I'm also going to share out some notes in a second here. All right, but just in general to overview this for you. And I am putting the notes in the chat if you'd like to grab that, and I'll pull that over. So if you just want to watch on my screen, you can. This is the notes I do share in the DocuSign 101 class. You took that with me last week. However, what I want to point out here is, so first of all, what this is I'll have written instructions on the top here for your DocuSign steps will be that second link, and I'll open that in just a moment here. So those will be your written steps for starting a transaction in Command with DocuSign. And then I also have highlighted just the quick tip videos. So tip videos that are really helpful with DocuSign. These are 10-minute tip videos that will show you, specific items that you're working on, whether it's creating a commission request, creating and sending templates from DocuSign, which we'll be doing today, and so forth. Okay, the ones highlighted are the ones not in the classes. So just a heads up on that. All right, so I'm going to open that second link just to show you guys that this is here, because I am not going over in detail the steps 1 through 10 on starting a transaction in Command. However, those steps are that second link. Okay, so if you click on that second link here, it'll pull this up. Nope, sorry, I lied. That's not what I want. I want the top one. I'm sorry. You guys get a taste of both. Sorry, the very first link instead for the DocuSign steps, my apologies. That will show you steps 1 through 10, how to start a transaction in Command and start your DocuSign room. And I'll overview that for you today. So I'll bring that to the side of my screen and I'll overview that for you briefly, but that is important to know that you do have those steps on there, steps 1 through 10, how to start and handle your transactions in Command. All right, so just to overview those quickly, all right, it is always really important that you start your transaction in Command. All right, so you do not want to be going to DocuSign to create your room directly. You always want to start in Command by adding a contact. So that's the first step, is we'll add a contact to your database. And once you add that contact to your database, you'll then want to create an opportunity from that contact. And so you can create an opportunity, just a heads up, in a couple different ways. I'll pull up one of my test contacts here to show you guys this. Okay, this works. All right, so just a heads up, when you add the contact to your database, you can search for opportunities and create opportunities in a couple different ways. So I just want to show you guys that quickly. So opportunities can be created directly from the contact record. So if you pull up the contact in your Command database, you can come over here and click Create Opportunity on the right-hand side. This is also a great way to find your opportunities. I really like searching by the contact in my database to locate the opportunity, especially if you have an investment client who buys investment properties. So you've done several transactions with them, or maybe you're representing a client who is selling their home with you and then buying the next home. Okay, you'd be able to view all opportunities here. And just a refresher on that, on when you want to be starting a new opportunity. Okay, you'll have a new opportunity per property that you sell. So again, if you're representing a client and they're selling their home with you and then buying the next home, that's going to be 2 separate opportunities because it's 2 separate transactions, 2 separate properties. Okay. So just a heads up on that. We can create our opportunity over here under opportunities. But I also want to show you the opportunity dashboard, which I do not go over in the DocuSign 101 class. Okay, but it does work very closely with DocuSign. Is the opportunities tab of your Command account. So on the far left toolbar here, let's go ahead and click the opportunities icon, which will be the handshake icon on the far left-hand menu. Just a heads up, you can click the KW logo on the top left to pan that menu out to get an idea of what each one of those icons mean and get a hang of the navigation around Command. So we're going about halfway down the Command menu for the Opportunities tab of Command. Okay, if you're wondering to yourself what the heck is an opportunity, it's a great question. I wondered the same thing when I first started with Command, and really it's just as corny as it sounds. Okay, an opportunity will be, you'll create an opportunity per opportunity you have for a lead, per opportunity for a closing, right? So this, your opportunities dashboard, I do have an entire class on opportunities 101 and managing your pipelines here. Which is on the tips, on the very bottom of that tips sheet I shared out with you guys. However, this will show you your pipelines for listings, buyers, and leases, and we'll show you the 5 main stages here for each one of those pipelines, from cultivate, essentially, warming up the lead to appointment, active, under contract, and then our favorite is closed, of course. I know this is just a brief overview of opportunities. Of course, check out the Opportunities 101 class to fully learn how to customize your opportunity pipeline and fully get all the use out of that. For today's class, what I want to show you is that you can also click Create Opportunity on the top right here to create that opportunity in Command. And this will always be the first step to starting a transaction in Command and in DocuSign. Okay, so again, we do not go to DocuSign directly to create our rooms. We always create the opportunity first in Command, which will then start your DocuSign room. And again, this is covered in detail in the DocuSign 101 class. I would really recommend watching that. All right, so if you do not have a practice opportunity in your account already, you can go ahead and add that in. Okay, so I'll go ahead and add that in just so you guys can see that real quick. So I'm just going to hop down to the 3 main fields that you have to fill out in order to continue. But again, the Opportunities 101 class will give you full details on all these fields. However, when I click Create Opportunity, the first field I have to fill out will be that client field. Oh, sorry, I lied. The first field that you have to fill out is the opportunity type, the one right above the client field. So the opportunity type, this is where you're just saying, okay, is this a listing, buyer, landlord, or tenant? So I'll leave that on listing for today's class. Okay, and then we can come down to the client field. The client field does require, in order to fill this in, they would already need to be in your database. Okay, so the very first step in theory is always adding your contact to your database first, like we talked about, and then that will allow you to create the opportunity. So you would not be able to add a client or add a contact to your database at this time. They would need to already be in your database. If there's a co-seller, you can go ahead and select that as well. And again, that's pulling from your database, so they need to already be in there. And the last field we absolutely have to fill out is this commission rate field. And that is just talking about your side of the commission. So you can go ahead and put in your 3% or whatever you normally get. That is a changeable field. So, if you sign the listing agreement and they talk you down to 2.5 or whatever the case is, that you can always adjust that. That's no problem. And let's click Create. Okay, for team member agents, please do note that team member, you may have a separate team pipeline or a personal pipeline. Okay, it just depends on how your Rainmaker has the settings set up for your team. So if you are trying to create an opportunity on the team pipeline, you can go ahead and select the team name from here. Just a heads up, your contact would need to be in the team database in order to create an opportunity from that. And if you would like to, team member agents, just a heads up on the notes I sent out, I'll send these out again. I do have a team transactions overview that'll highlight mainly the differences for managing your opportunity in Command as a team. Okay, DocuSign will be fine to continue following along, but I would recommend after class, if you're on a team, check out this video. I believe it's just like 10-15 minutes, and that'll just highlight the differences for team members, what you want to be keeping an eye out for. All right, and we'll click Create. Okay, so it's always really important that we are starting our transaction by creating the opportunity first in Command, and I'll be talking more about why that's so important as we go along. Well, this is one of them, actually. So how we go about accessing DocuSign and creating our DocuSign room is from the Documents tab of the opportunity, right? Now, there's a brand new feature that rolled out, I want to say in the past 3 weeks here. This is super cool, and it will depend on your market center, if your market center has this set up. So as I mentioned, this is a brand new feature. So I'll tell you how you can tell if your market center has this set up quite yet. All right, but what the feature does is if you follow the specific workflow that I'm about to show you, it will automatically add your required forms into DocuSign for you. So as opposed to you having, to click add on the top of your DocuSign room and manually find your forms to pull that in. Okay, this tip will show you how to automatically pull those required forms in to your DocuSign room. Okay, this will depend on if your office has this set up, and I'll tell you how to tell. So it's really important for this to work. okay, before starting your DocuSign room, right? We're going to click start a transaction in just a moment here to actually start your DocuSign room. This step has to be done before starting your DocuSign room to actually work. So on the left-hand side where it says pick checklist type, yours may say pick checklist type or may already show the checklist name, like it might say residential or, you know, listing, sales, whatever it may be. And that will be the case if your market center has one checklist only for compliance. That's totally fine, but just to let you know that may vary. So either way, I'll click pick checklist type and go ahead and select the checklist that would apply to my given transaction. Now, when I do that, when I select that checklist, I'll see now, this is the new feature, these teal DSs next to some of my forms. And if you're not seeing those teal DSs, no worries. That just means your office has not set this feature up quite yet. All right. However, if you are seeing those, that means that these forms will automatically pull into your DocuSign room as soon as we click start a transaction. So any form names, these are not the forms themselves, right? These are just the checklist to keep you guys in compliance. And we'll circle back to how this functions as well. All right, but just note that any forms with that blue DS, those are the forms that your Market Center staff has marked as required to automatically pull into your DocuSign room. Okay, now watch how cool this is. So again, if you do not have these, there's nothing wrong with your account. Your Market Center is just working on still setting that up, and that's totally fine. Okay. So now to actually see that in action, I'm going to click start a transaction on the top right. Now, if you are taking notes on today's class, please just star how important it is that you have to pick the checklist first before clicking start a transaction for these forms to automatically pull in. So I'll click start a transaction. If you do not have both DocuSign and .loop linked up, you'll probably just be taken to DocuSign, and that's great. But you can select it here. So I'll select DocuSign for today's class. And that'll take me to log into DocuSign, which it does prompt me to log in the first time I log in each day. And that'll pull the forms in that my Market Center labeled as required. So those have been pulled in here. And again, these are the forms that my Market Center has this DS next to. Okay, so that'll depend on how your Market Center has it set up, which forms actually pull in automatically. Okay, and if you are Market Center staff on this call and you're wondering how to set that feature up for your agents, feel free to shoot me an email. I do have steps on that. If you'd like to email me, I'll put this in the chat as well at support@scottleroymarketing.com. You can put attention my name, which is Leah, Leah, and I will shoot you notes on how to set this up for your agents after this class. All right, guys. So again, if those forms didn't automatically pull in, no worries. Okay, that is a new and upcoming DocuSign feature. So just know that if your account didn't do it quite yet, that feature is to come. And that is very exciting to help expedite your processes here. All right, but just to quickly show you guys how to add further forms to your DocuSign room. All right, you can come up to add on the very top right of the documents tab here. I'm clicking add on the top right. And just know that you do have a couple options here. You can add PDFs from your computer, which we'll be doing. The DocuSign Forms option will bring in any fillable forms, so the forms that you can just start typing in that make your life so much easier. So that's what we'll be doing in just a moment here. But you'll also have the zip form option. I do want to highlight that for California agents. California agents especially, you have to use zip forms with DocuSign. And I'll show you real quick how to link that up. However, if you are a California agent, you will need to use zip form to actually access your forms. So I'm going to go ahead and just click add and click DocuSign Forms here to pull this up. And this will show me my current forms that I do have available in DocuSign. If you are seeing a different pop-up that is prompting you to validate your NERDS ID, you can click skip for right now. I'll come back to that to show you how to add your NERDS ID. I would just click skip to see if your forms are already in there. So if you're seeing what I see here, I just want to point out that on the left-hand side, you will see your different groups. Yeah, so this right here, this in use thing, that's a good question. And this does tend to, we get questions on this quite a bit. So you'll notice, right, since I have these forms pulling over automatically, it will not allow me to pull in a second copy of the form. That is how DocuSign works. So let me explain how DocuSign wants you to handle that instead. Okay, this is a little jumping ahead, but this is great for you guys to know. All right, so anytime, so you will see these in use, right? I cannot pull in a second copy of these forms, but I can include other forms. So, you know, just a heads up how we continue bringing in these forms, simply click on the checkbox to pull that into your room. Okay, now if it's the forms that say in use, that probably means it's the ones that are already in here. Now, the reason it is saying in use, okay, it will not let you pull in a second copy of the form. And this is why. So when a form comes back signed to DocuSign, okay, so the first step is, of course, we would edit this original copy. And when it comes back signed, okay, it'll come back as a totally separate PDF. And I'm going to show you guys what signed forms look like in here. Okay, cool. Wondering why it was showing sample like that. Doesn't seem to show that on the actual form, so that's good. So I'm gonna just, if you can watch on my screen, I'm gonna pop over to another room that I have signed forms in, so you guys can see firsthand what I'm talking about with how signed forms work, because it really plays tightly into this question here that you have, Susie, about that those being in use. It's a great question. All right, so here's a great example for you. So this is the original form, right? And I can tell that because of this blue icon right here that shows form, right? That denotes that it is a DocuSign fillable form. That is the same icon, right, that we see from the add menu from that second option, which is where we just clicked. So these are all your fillable forms. Any forms that have this blue icon, when you open it, they're just going to be fillable, which is wonderful. Okay, when you send that off for signatures and it comes back, it'll come back as a totally separate copy of the form, like this one here, with a signed icon. And I have this one signed, for example. And what it does is it converts it to a PDF. So this is now a PDF showing the signatures. It's a second copy of the form, converted to a PDF with the signatures. So it preserves your client's signatures. Those can't be erased, which is great. All right, so but how DocuSign wants you to handle this, if you need to send out, let's say, a second copy of that addendum or whatever the form may be, what DocuSign wants you to do is come back to the original form, right? Because I still have the original form and here's the signed copy. So DocuSign wants you to come back to the original copy of the form to edit the original and send that one out for signatures. And then once that comes back signed, it'll be a totally separate PDF in your DocuSign room. So again, it will not let you pull in multiple copies of these DocuSign fillable forms. Instead, you'll always want to edit the original, send for signatures, and it'll come back as a totally separate form each time showing signed. I know that's very different than how Dotloop was and definitely tripped me up as well at first. So if you have any questions about how that works, just let me know. Yeah, absolutely. Great question. All right, I'm going back to my DocuSign room here. Okay, and let's talk about if you did not have your forms in your DocuSign room, like from the add button up here. Let me just real quick show you how to link up your Nerds ID and ZipForm account in case that needs to be done. And then we will be hopping over to creating new templates, which I really like, which is a pretty new feature as well. All right, so if you did not have your forms in there when clicking add, like if there was a note that said something like, I forget what it says, like not accessible or something like that, you can add your Nerds ID to DocuSign, and typically that will be the key. So to do that, we'll click on our headshot or initials on the very top right. And then click Preferences. So again, your headshot or initials on the top right in a circle, and then Preferences. This is if you did not have your forms when you searched, right, when we clicked Add there. After you click on Preferences from this top drop-down menu, we'll click on Integrations on the left-hand side. And if you're a California agent, you have to use ZipForms, okay? So you can link up your ZipForm account right here by clicking this arrow on the far right. And if it gives you any error that it won't connect or that the login is incorrect, is 9 times out of 10 your username for ZipForms. The ZipForms username is not the same as your car.org login. Just a heads up, I know that's where you access ZipForms, but your username is actually different. So if you have any trouble logging into ZipForms here, don't know your username, I do have steps for that. If you want to shoot me an email, support@scottleroymarketing.com, mention my name, which is Leah, Leah. I'd be more than happy to shoot those directions over just on how to find your correct ZipForm username. Now, even if you're not in California, you can technically link up ZipForms if that's provided by your MLS board, but typically it's easier to add your NERDS ID to DocuSign to access your forms that way instead, if that is available for your board. So instead, you can click Add Provider. California agents, you don't have this option, just a heads up, so you don't try. Add Provider right here, and that will prompt you to go ahead and select the Realtor option. So we're putting in our NERDS ID, which is the National Association of Realtors. Okay, and you can go ahead and put your NERDS ID in, your last name, as that matches your license, and your association from this list. Okay, some states that do require this would be Florida, Texas, you can put in your NERDS ID, South Carolina, New Jersey, okay, and I'll just go ahead and share out, I do have a spreadsheet that tells you which ones, pull that up, which states do require your NERDS ID, because that's obviously a really long, crazy, unalphabetized list. So if you're wondering if your NERDS ID needs to be entered in, I will put a spreadsheet in the chat that will tell you straight up for your state if your NERDS ID is required to access your forms. So that is in the chat, and shoot me an email if you have any questions about that or how that works. Of course, we're happy to help you enter your NERDS ID as well. All right, guys, so the next thing that we're going to cover is talking about creating templates for your interactive board forms. So your interactive forms, meaning like the forms that are automatically fillable. I'm going to show you how you can, for example, grab a listing agreement, fill in most of the data that would be the same for, every listing agreement, so that you can pull in that, half filled out listing agreement for every future, listing transaction that you have to help expedite that process. So to do that, we're going to come up here to My Docs on the very top toolbar. This is a newer feature, I would say in the last 3 months or so. Granted, all my days are really running together, so who knows, but we are going to the My Docs section to create these templates. And I'll be on the very top white toolbar for My Docs. And then we'll click on Form Templates from there. So this is the brand new tab that was added in to create your form templates. Okay, and I have some already created in here, but I'm going to show you how to create that from scratch. So again, if you're jotting down notes, because this will be a great thing to jot down, so you can come in here and create form templates for buyer agency agreements, or really every form that you would like to have pre-filled. So My Docs on the very top white toolbar, Form Templates on the toolbar below that, and then we'll click Create Form Template. So that blue button, Create Form Template. All right, and this right here will give you the option. I'll give you 2 drop downs here. One to select from your library or form groups. And depending on what you select in the first drop down, it will change what you see in the second drop down. So your form libraries will mainly be things like your MLS forms, your real estate association forms. And then your office staff will go through and group your forms. So if you want to select the form group option, that will change what you're seeing in the second drop down to grouping your forms further to make them easier for you to find. Your office staff sets up these groups for you. So of course you'll see something different than I see. You can play around with this and you can go ahead and grab, whichever form, if you want to pull in a listing agreement to practice this on, or buyer agency, okay, whatever form that you would use for multiple transactions that would be helpful to pre-fill some data in. Of course, you can search for the form up here as well and click use. All right, so when we do that, so it'll pull up the template here. And a lot of the information will autofill, right? So when you are creating these forms here, you know, your client information will autofill, your brokerage information should autofill, but really any information that is you want on several listing agreements, you want to go ahead and enter in. And of course, this is changeable. So, you know, if you're filling in the listing agreement and you select this option here, but for that specific transaction, you will need to select the other one. You know, you can of course change this information once you pull the template into your DocuSign room. Right, so the idea here is going through and filling in the form with information that would be on most of your listing agreements to try to save you time. Okay, maybe go through and check the check dots or the radio dots rather for the options that are usually selected. Right, so as I scroll down, you know, I can fill in any fields that I would put, you know, NA in. That tends to be a lot of them sometimes, right? A home warranty, if the seller usually agrees or does not agree, you can go ahead and fill that in. What's cool too is you can create multiple versions of these templates. So for example, if I wanted to create a listing agreement for cash deals and then a listing agreement for finance deals, I could do that. So I can pull, you know, create multiple versions of this template depending on the situation, which is also great. Just a heads up, these templates cannot be shared quite yet amongst team members or agents, so this will just stay in your account for now. But hopefully that feature will come. All right, but the idea here is, and of course you don't need to do this all now, okay, as long as you have notes on how to get back here. All right, but the idea is putting in the information that would be on most listing agreements. Once you're done with that, we can come up to the pencil icon on the top left to go ahead and rename that. Maybe I'll want to name this listing agreement for cash deals. And you do need to click on save, kind of hidden the check mark on the right hand side to save that name. All right, and we'll click save and close. Of course, you can come back and edit this, guys, so don't feel like this is the last time. So you can click on save and close, just so I can show you now how to apply these templates to your DocuSign room. All right, but you can come back in at any time to the, again, My Docs section. If you haven't written this down, My Docs on the very top white toolbar, then Form Templates on the lower toolbar. Then you'll see you can come in and click edit anytime to continue editing that. You can copy or delete it. So the copy feature will be really helpful. Like if I created that listing agreement for cash deals, if I want to come in here and copy it to make a separate template for finance deals, you know, I can copy it. That would copy most of the information over, and I can just change the details that would vary in that situation. All right, so that's how you go about creating the template. So pretty user-friendly, I thought. So now let me show you how to apply the template to your DocuSign room. So I'm going to navigate back to the DocuSign room I'm using for today's class. And you can do that in a couple different ways by either clicking the rooms option on the top or your dashboard. I'm going to click on the dashboard because that'll just take me back to the top 5 rooms that I've used recently. And simply go ahead and click on that DocuSign room. And we are clicking on the Documents tab specifically. Okay, so we're going to back to your DocuSign room in the Documents tab specifically. All right, so there's 2 ways to add in a template, to apply a template rather. So if you already have the form in your DocuSign room, let's talk about that way first, especially with this new feature, right, where your DocuSign forms are automatically pulling in for some of you. Okay, if that form is already in your room and you want to apply that template, you can right click on the form. And as long as you have a template created for that specific form, you'll have this option to apply form template. So this option will not be there at all if you do not have a form template created under My Docs. Okay, so you'll only have this option if you have created a template from that specific form. And you'll see here now it gives me the option to select, okay, which one of those templates do I want? So in the case that you do have multiple versions for cash and finance, you can go ahead and select the one you want and click apply. And now when I open that form, it will have the templated information filled in. Okay, so you'll see it does have the information entered in, right? I checked that dot, I added in not too much stuff, NA, check some dots here, cash and so forth. So you can see that automatically pulls in, and you can see the auto filling come into play here as well, right? Because I created my DocuSign room from my command opportunity, it automatically pulls over the client's contact information from my command account, from my command database. It'll automatically pull over my information as the agent. So here's my information as the agent. It automatically pulled over from the white pages. It'll pull over listing data if you have that entered into your opportunity as well. All right, so that information, that's another big reason you want to be starting your transaction in command, right? Like we did today, right? Adding the contact, creating the opportunity, and then click start transaction, because it will autofill everything from command onto every single DocuSign form that you pull in to help save you time. All right, so that was one way we applied the template, right? We right clicked and clicked apply form template. But like for this form, for example, I don't have a template created for that one, so I don't have that option. So if you're not seeing that option, it means you do not have a template created. Good question, Ryan. The question is, if the form is changed at the state board level, do we need to redo the template? Typically, yes. So from what I've seen, and that's around, at least I think every August, check with your broker, of course, but I think once a year that does change out. So this would need to be done in theory yearly if the form did change. So kind of keep an eye out for that. Typically, like your broker, your managing broker, your broker in charge will send out emails once the forms update, so that will give you a notification, hey, go ahead and change my template. Great question, Ryan. Thanks for pointing that out. All right, the second way that you can add form templates in is actually when you're adding forms themselves. So if you click on add on the top right and select from DocuSign forms here. All right, so that option will always give you your fillable forms. All right, so I'm going to try to find one I already don't have in here. Aha, here's one. Well, this is good for you guys to see. So when you're selecting a form that has a template, you'll notice this drop down appears, right? I selected both of these. Nothing happened with the drop down for this one because I don't have a template for that. However, I have a template created for this form. So because of that, I have a drop down, which will allow me to pick from the templates to select the template that would apply to that. Okay, so you can apply templates right away when you're pulling those in, or if it's already in your DocuSign room, you can right click on it and click apply template. If you guys have any questions on that, please just let me know. All right, so that is how you go about creating templates. That can be a huge time saver for you. So I would recommend putting in 20-30 minutes to creating those templates, and you'll be prepped for all future transactions. All right, so the next thing I'm going to show you is editing PDFs. So we're going to talk about editing PDFs and also signed forms, because as I mentioned, as you guys saw, anytime a form comes back signed, it will convert that to a PDF. So this tip will apply for both situations. All right, so outside of signed forms, when this tip will come into play, let's say the agent on the other side doesn't use DocuSign and they just email you a PDF of the offer, let's say. And so now you've saved it to your computer. You have a PDF saved to your computer, but you want to go ahead and send that out to your clients for electronic signatures. Okay, I'm going to show you how you would go about that. All right, so first of all, assuming you have that PDF saved to your computer, We can go ahead and add that to your DocuSign room by clicking add on the top right to search your computer. So again, this tip will be for getting PDF signed if you need that to get signed, if you need to edit a PDF, if you need to edit signed forms. I'll talk more on signed forms specifically after this. But when clicking add on the top right, we'll select from computer. If you do have a PDF to practice with on your computer, really any PDF will work, even if it's not really a form, it'll still be good for you guys to practice with. So I located that on my computer and I double click to bring that in. And if you're still looking for a PDF, take your time. I do want to point out that this is kind of the final icon, right? I did mention that this blue icon here will note that the form is fillable, right? That's the same icon that's from this menu here. Sorry. Same icon as next to DocuSign forms. So those are all your fillable forms, right? We saw that signed icon, that green signed icon. And this will be the third one for any PDFs. So that by nature, a PDF cannot be edited, right? If I open that up, right, I can't just click and start typing. Right? However, DocuSign does allow you to edit PDFs and even add initial boxes and signature boxes if your client does need to sign that. All right, so let's do that. All right, so in order to edit a PDF, you will need to pull that into an envelope first. Okay, and hopefully you guys have a little concept of what an envelope is from the DocuSign 101 class. Thanks. Yeah, Tony Stark and Pepper Potts, and then we got buyers, Hermione Granger and Ronald Weasley, like sign me up to be their agent. I'm down. All right, but so what we're going to do is pull this into an envelope. And again, if you have not watched the DocuSign 101 class and don't feel comfortable on what an envelope is, I would suggest it. I have a 30-minute version of that class as well for an overview. It's on the notes. I'll highlight that in a moment here. However, anytime what an envelope is, it's a new term if you're newer to DocuSign. I totally understand that. But an envelope is used as a term anytime you're sending out forms for signatures. In DocuSign, you'll create an envelope, which makes sense if you think about snail mail, right? Anytime you send forms, you grab an envelope first. So you can create an envelope in a variety of different ways. In this case, since I have the form open, I'll go ahead and click the document actions icon, which is the folded sheet of paper on the top right here. And that'll give you a bunch of options, but the one I want to highlight is create envelope. So we're clicking create envelope. And that'll pull you right in to your envelope. Okay, so typically when you are sending off forms for signatures, again, first step is always creating an envelope and adding your documents. So I do see that PDF is added to my envelope. I can add further forms if I would like to, so you can pull more forms from your room docs if you need to. So if you need to send out more than one form, you can add in additional from here. And that will also allow you to reorder the forms. So if you want those sent out in a different order, you can adjust that right here. Of course, you can X out of the form you don't want. All right, and add recipients. That will be the next step, which makes sense if you're thinking of snail mail here. So we'll add recipient to our envelope. So I'm going to select that top option for room participants. So under add recipients, the main thing you always want to remember here is you typically always want to select the top option. Anytime you click add recipients, select the top option. And this is pulling over the names from command, right? Because since you told command that this is a listing opportunity, for example, and these are your clients, command told DocuSign that that's seller one, that's seller two. So we'll click add selected. So you do not need to add yourself unless it's a form you need to sign. So if it's like a listing agreement that you need to sign, great, go ahead and add yourself. If it is not, you do not need to add yourself. We'll click add selected. Okay, and while we're in here, guys, I do want to show you an additional tip for if you have an admin that you want to notify each time that the form is signed, or, a transaction coordinator, or let's say your mortgage provider needs to be notified once you have a fully executed contract, right? This is how you can add in an additional person who doesn't need to sign, but that just needs to be notified that the form has been fully signed. Okay, so quick tip on this. So to do that, we'll click on Add Recipient, and this time we'll do it by email address. Okay, so you can add additional people to the envelope that aren't in your DocuSign room by email address. So I'll click Add Recipient, email address. All right, I can go ahead and put in the person's first and last name. So if this is your transaction coordinator or your mortgage provider, you can go ahead and put in their name and email. Okay, but this is what you really want to focus on, these next two parts. All right, so as you can see, it defaults as needs to sign. In this case, right, my mortgage provider, admin, transaction coordinator, they don't need to sign, they just need to receive a copy. Okay, so you want to change that to receives a copy. And because I wondered for a really long time what the differences of needs to view or receives a copy, just a heads up, needs to view will require them to view it before you receive the signed copy back. And I'll talk more about that. So I don't really suggest that one. I would always select receives a copy. All right, this is the other big step. And this is something that's unique to DocuSign, which I think is cool. You'll see these ones on the left-hand side. That's telling you what order it will send your clients. Now, usually I just leave them on one. So if I'm getting both my clients to sign, I leave them both as one, which means that the form will go out when I send it. It'll go to both my clients at the same time for them to electronically sign it. So that's great. Okay, if you change one to a two, let's say, what will happen is this person will not receive the copy until both people marked as a one have signed or completed their action. Okay. So typically you can leave your clients both as a one, right? But if you do want the, let's say your broker is signing and they need to get that second, or again, you want them to receive a copy, your mortgage provider, you can put that as a two. And so what would happen is, again, we'll receive a copy of the fully signed form once both people with a one have signed that. So pretty cool feature that I think you guys can definitely implement into your business. And I'll click next on the top right. So next on the top right, and this will take you to editing the PDF. Okay, and again, this will apply to editing signed forms, which I'll talk more about. And also editing PDFs, if you need to edit the PDF or send these for signature, okay? You'll notice for a PDF that the signature and initial boxes do not automatically display, okay? So just a reminder, if the form is fillable, right, it had that blue form icon, and when you opened it in your DocuSign room, you could just start typing in it. If that's the case, if it's a fillable form, once you pull it into the envelope, the initial and signature boxes will automatically display. So this is when they would display if the form was fillable in your DocuSign room. However, by nature, PDFs, right, are not fillable. So in this case, we'll need to manually add the signature and initial fields in order for your clients to sign this. So on the left-hand side menu, you'll see a bunch of fields. Okay, with the signature and initial options. But what I want to point out is the top drop down on the very top left that shows you your client's names, the people that are signing in this envelope. You'll notice if I change that to my other client, it will change the color of all of these fields, okay, because it's showing it associated to this client. So what I need to do is add an initial box for this client. So I can just simply click on the initial option, it'll follow my mouse. I can click to drop it. All right, so that'll allow my first client to sign. So now I want my second client to sign. So I'm going to change the color of that, or change the name. It will change the color. So I can grab the second initial box to go ahead and drop that as well. All right, so now I can see by just briefly looking at it, both clients can sign because of those two different colors. So now in theory, right, I would need to add those initial fields to the bottom of each page that they need to sign. However, this offer is, I need to add that to 10 to 13 pages. That's a lot of clicks. So let me show you guys a cool workaround. If you need to copy and paste fields, this will apply to any fields you're adding to a PDF, so if you have a bunch of text fields that you need to add in, you can copy and paste those for every page or whatever the case may be. So to do that, so let's say I need these initial boxes on the bottom of every page. The quickest way to do that is I'm going to click and hold my mouse. So click and hold my mouse, and you'll notice it like draws a rectangle around those fields, whatever fields you want to copy. And it'll highlight them like royal blue, showing that they're both selected. Okay, then on your keyboard, you'll want to click Control-C to copy that. If you're using a Mac, that'll be Command-C. So again, Control-C for a PC user, that's the shortcut for copy, or Command-C on your keyboard if you are a Mac user. So I just copied these two. So again, to show you this one more time, I clicked, held my mouse down to draw a box around that. That'll highlight both. Control-C or Command-C to go ahead and copy that. Now I'll come back down to my next, wherever I need to lay initial boxes, and kind of click there so that, DocuSign knows where you want to lay these new fields. And we're going to do Control-V. Come on, wait, hang on. Let me grab them again. We're going to do Control-V or Command-V to actually lay those. Oh man. Is that working on your screen for you guys? Let me know in the chat if not. There we go. I don't know why that 5th time's a charm. Oh, that's why that got me. All right, I was laying on the field or on the page below. Sorry, guys. So you can see that it will drop in those initial boxes, and that's why I was saying it's important to kind of click where you want to drop it so that it knows where you would like to drop those. So you could go down to the bottom of each of these pages to go ahead and lay those. So let's say in this case, though, you did what I did and messed it up and laid fields on top of each other. I can delete these fields, no problem, by clicking on them and clicking delete. And I can select multiple at a time by holding Shift on my keyboard and selecting both. So these are just kind of some keyboard shortcuts here. You can select multiple of these fields by holding Shift and selecting multiple and click delete to get rid of those. You can also move them around. So let's say I laid it on the wrong spot several times. You can, if I click on one, right, I'm holding Shift, that's how I'm selecting multiple. So I'm clicking on one, holding Shift, then selecting the other, and you can see it selects both. You can, click to drag that around. That's no problem. I'm just gonna get rid of those. So again, we can go through and simply copy these fields, right? Control-C or Command-C, go down to the next page, and we want to do Control-V or Command-V, we'll paste it, okay? So if you're writing down shortcuts, these are helpful for you. Control-C is copy, Control-V is paste or Command-V. If you're a Mac user, just anytime I say Control, it's Command. All right, so I can go through, and now you can see I can quickly come through and click on the area, Command-V, and it lays it right away. So pretty cool to help expedite that. Oh, and thanks, Chris. Chris did put in the chat Control-C and the Control-V to copy and paste that if you want to grab that in the chat. Oh, thanks. Yeah, V is in Victor. Appreciate that, guys. All right, and so same concept goes for signature fields. I just want to show you guys that so you feel comfortable, because there is a little something extra to know here. So if you're laying signature fields on the form, please just know that you do need to lay the date as well. Okay, and I'll show you what that looks like. So I scroll down to a signature field, and I'll go ahead and click signature. I'm going to go ahead and click to drop that. When you're laying signature fields specifically, you also need to add the date signed field. All right, so when your client actually goes to sign it, they don't have to fill out the date separately. It'll autofill that information, but you as the agent, if you are setting up a PDF to be signed, their complete signature, you do also need to add in the date signed field. So please make a note of that. All right, so now switch over to my other client from the dropdown. to add that signature and the date signed. And you will need that to be in compliance. You need a date for your signatures. All right, so this is how we lay fields for your client to fill in. Now let me talk, there are pretty new, these are pretty new agent fill fields as well. So let's talk about the difference between the, oh yeah, sure, no problem. Yeah, so for the date, to answer the question in the chat here, anytime you're adding signature fields specifically, so this does not apply to initial fields, signature fields specifically, when you're laying those, you also need to add the date signed field. So you can see, right, I laid the signature field and then I went back and added this date signed field, right? And the reason that I need to do that, the date will not display on the signature itself. Okay, you do need to add in the date signed field, and that will autofill for your client. So when your client's actually going through and filling this in and actually signing, it'll automatically add the date for them. They don't have to click to add the date. But you as the agent, if you are adding signatures to only PDFs, right? This is editing PDFs, you need to manually add in that date signed field. So to tell you the difference about the agent fields and the client fields, right? Because there are text fields for your client as well. So if it's a field that your client needs to fill in, like maybe it's something about personal property, see if I have where that is. So if it's like the personal property that's conveying, for example, and you want your client to fill that in. All right, so you can go through and actually, you can click on the text box option on the left-hand side to lay a text box for your client to fill in. Okay. Of course, you can resize that. So once I click on text, I can click on the dots on the corners to go ahead and resize that to make it bigger. And you'll notice that it's a solid blue color, meaning that it will make that client fill in that field. Okay, so whichever client is marked with that color, it will make the client fill in this text field as they're signing, right? It'll prompt them to sign the initial boxes, and then I'll take them down to the personal property and make them fill this out to continue. Now, if it is a field that you need to sign or fill in as the agent, so if it's a text box you don't need your clients to fill in, but let's say you get the offer and you need to make a slight change, like the agent on the other side butchered your client's name or didn't put their legal name, whatever the case may be, the fields to edit as the agent, and this is fairly new, last few months I'd say, are under this icon, the far left gray toolbar. You'll see pre-filled tools. It's a pencil icon. And that will give you these agent tools. So you'll notice they're gray, right? They're not blue or yellow. They're not marked with one of your client's colors. They're gray because this is for you as the agent. Okay, so all clients will automatically be able to see these fields and they will not be prompted to fill those in. So let's say in this example, I want to go ahead and change out the name because the agent on the other side, didn't put their legal name. So I can strike that through with the line field. So I can go ahead and click to drop that line. These fields are, movable and deletable, so nothing is set in stone here. So we can go ahead and strike that through. And now I'm going to grab a text box from the top to go ahead and lay that. So text field, and then click to drop it. We can resize this up a little bit, right? Because that's really small. So clicking on the field will then allow you to resize it from the corners. And then you could go ahead and put in their actual legal name. All right, so you can, again, these are the fields that will be for you as the agent. So you can add those. And then once you're ready, you can go ahead and send that off by clicking send on the top right. Okay, and now a very important thing to know after we've edited this PDF, of course, drop any questions that you guys have in the chat. But once we click send here, okay, it will send this PDF off to those clients to sign. All right, however, when I come back to my DocuSign room, so in the envelope section, envelopes tab, it will show you Anytime that, so right, you'll have a separate envelope each time that you go to send one or multiple documents out for signatures. So if you ever want to come back to the envelope to check on that, right, I can click on the envelope and you can resend it from here. So if one client hasn't signed that and you need to resend it, you can do it from here, which kind of keep that in the back of your head because it'll apply to what I'm saying in just a moment here. So you can resend it there. Now, please note, I just X'd out on the top right. It's a little fast. But what I want to tell you guys is if you come back to the documents tab of your room, and if you're to open that PDF that we started with, you will not see the edits that you made in the envelope. Okay, you won't see, you know, the strike through on their name with the new text box. You won't see the initial fields. You will not see the changes made in the envelope that we just did until after the form has come back signed. Okay, so let's chat a little bit further about fully signed forms in DocuSign. So the form will not come back signed, right? We saw what a signed form looks like, right? It has that green signed icon. I can go over and show you guys that again. That form will not come back signed until all parties have signed it. So when one party signs it, one of your clients signs it, you will receive an email notification letting you know that client A has signed the form, and you'll even have that form attached with that one signature to that email. However, when you come back to your DocuSign room in the Documents tab, you will not see that signed form until all parties have signed. Okay, so I just don't want you to get confused on that. And then, so in that case, you will not see the changes to that PDF until all parties have signed. Then you'll get the signed copy of the form with all those changes we made in the envelope. Now, with that being said, if you have a client, you know, let's say two clients signing, one has already signed, the other one's dragging their feet, or they can't find the email. Well, that will prevent you from receiving the fully signed form back to your DocuSign room. So in that case, you can come over to your envelopes tab here, and you can actually resend this form or this envelope to only the parties who have not signed. So if you click resend here, it will only send to the party that has not yet signed, which is cool. Okay, guys, let me know if you have any questions on that. And I know I am a little over class for the last 5 minutes. I should be wrapping up within 5 minutes here. I do want to talk to you guys about how signed forms work, pulling that into Command, and what to do when you go under contract in Command. So if you can stick around for 5 more minutes, great. I'm going to show you the steps to take once you go under contract. Okay. If you cannot stay, again, this class is being recorded and will be found on our YouTube channel right after, you know, probably this afternoon, a few hours here. And that is youtube.com/Scott Leroy Marketing. All right, so if you can stick around, I am just going to X out this envelope if you had followed me. Okay, and I'm actually going to switch over to Command. So if you do not have Command open in a separate tab, you can go ahead and just pull that up, pull up a separate tab and go to agent.kw.com. Of course, you can watch on my screen. Okay, so what I want to talk to you guys about is, again, what to do when you go under contract. Okay, and so this is how the opportunity in Command works with your DocuSign room. So real quick, this was kind of integral to me understanding how the system works. So I want to share this with you. Okay, so DocuSign is being used between the agent and your client to access your forms, edit your forms, and send for signatures. Okay, so again, DocuSign is being used between the client, or I'm sorry, the agent and your client. That's where all your forms will be in DocuSign. You'll edit your forms in DocuSign. You'll send for electronic signatures in DocuSign. Okay, Command, the Command opportunity, where I am here, is being used between the agent and your office to add your signed paperwork. So once that paperwork comes back signed in DocuSign, you'll then add the signed paperwork to the Documents tab of your opportunity to submit that to your office for compliance review. So I'm going to show you that briefly, and I'm also going to show you kind of how the Offers and Commissions tab works as well. And hopefully I can pull that off in 5 minutes for you guys. All right, so the Documents tab here, you can add your files. So this is something that you'll do once your forms have come back signed. So you can attach the signed paperwork to your DocuSign room, to your opportunity to submit to your Market Center for compliance review. And this is something that will be required to receive your commission check. So you do need to be doing that. All right, so you'll see on the left-hand side, we have our listed folder under contract and close. depending on, you know, what your transaction looks like here. And I can simply add my signed forms in. So you can do that one at a time on the right-hand side, or I can click attach multiple files at the top. So please remember that what you're seeing here under the Documents tab, these are not the forms themselves. They're placeholders, maybe a preview of the form. But in order to add the actual signed forms to your opportunity, we'll click attach multiple files. You can pull that in right from your computer. So if you have those signed forms saved to your computer, you can drag and drop those in, or just click to pull that in from your computer. But really what makes your life easier is this DocuSign option at the top here. So that DocuSign option, if you select that, it will allow you to click the drop down next to each one of the form names to go ahead and click, and it'll only show your signed forms from this drop down. Okay, so PDFs and signed forms will only show here. So if it's not showing you anything for your practice DocuSign room, that's okay. All right, but you'll see how I can go ahead and select the form that applies in DocuSign, and I can click attach, and that will link it to the opportunity right away. Yes, great question, Rebecca. This only shows forms associated with this opportunity or this DocuSign room specifically. Great question. So that'll be your signed paperwork in this DocuSign room specifically. Yeah, no problem. Good question. All right, so that's what we want to be doing. All right, and as you add in your forms, you can click submit to MC on the top right, which don't do quite yet. All right, just in general to give you an idea of when you want to be submitting to your Market Center for review. All right, you'll typically, and guys, check with your whatever your Market Center staff says on their compliance procedure. That is #1 to follow. But just to give you a general idea of when to be submitting to your Market Center for review. Typically, if you're representing the listing, you'll submit that for review 3 times. Once when it goes live on the MLS with all your listing paperwork, a second time when you go under contract with all of your contract paperwork, and a third time when you close. All right, if you're representing a buyer, you'll typically click that submit to MC button on the top twice. Once when you go under contract and once when you close. Okay, and I know that was just a very general overview. You know, check in with your office staff. They'll typically have specific compliance procedures for you to follow. However, what I want to show you guys is offers and commissions tab. This is what you do when you go under contract. Okay, so when you go under contract, you will need to add your offer and submit a commission request anytime that you go under contract. Okay, a commission request is basically, it's like the old green sheets if you ever used those before. It's all a commission request is telling your office how you're getting paid. So are you getting all of your commission? Are you splitting that 50-50 with another team member in your office or another agent in your office? Are you paying an outside referral of 25% or so forth? And before I go through this real quick, I do want to point out that I do have this on the notes. So if you do need to head out, I'm going to share out the notes one more time in the chat. Oops, sorry. I need to send that to everyone. 1 second. All right, so I just put the notes in the chat. Again, I'm just pointing out that the commission request tip video is on here. So where it says create a commission request, I would recommend watching that after today's class. Okay, because that will show you step by step how to create that commission request, or you can save that until you actually go under contract. All right, but that'll give you a great idea of what to do. And again, all that's doing, so just to kind of overview that, all we're doing here is we're adding in the offer details. So to kind of show you that, we'll click add new offer here. You'll name your offer. So I can name this whatever I would like to. Let's say my client's name, click create offer, and it will just take you through this pipeline here of adding in the information that your office staff and your commission request needs in order to process your commission. So items like the offer and close dates. If you would like to watch on my screen, this will be a little quick just to kind of give you guys an idea of what this looks like, right? But that video I shared with you guys will talk you through this in detail. So once I click next, it'll take me over to the parties, so I can put in, you know, the client's names and the agent's name. I need to do that for both sides here. And when you're filling this out, please just note those red stars, the red asterisk will always just note what you have to fill in, the required fields. The rest of the fields aren't required. So that helps you breeze through it a little faster. Now click that next button. Okay, whatever the button says on the bottom, that's teal. That'll take you to the next page. So again, now I'm putting in some terms here. Let's see, we're almost done on that pipeline. So, and this is all information that you would already have on the executed offer. You know, how much are they paying cash? How much are they financing? How much is the earnest money? Is there an option fee? You know, termination option? Is the seller contributing to closing costs and so forth? So then I'll go ahead and click on agent analysis on the right, or on the bottom right, and I can put in any pros and cons, and this can also be sent to your clients to view a report, especially in a multiple offer situation. All right, so pros, let's say close date is soon. The cons are it's contingent. All right, whatever the case may be, or you know, high financed, whatever it may be, and we'll click on save. And that will add your offer in. I know that was super quick, guys, but that video will walk you through it in more detail. Once you have that offer added in, you can click accept or to reject that offer. So if I click accept, that will allow me to manage the commission. So now it will allow me to come over to the commission request and go ahead and put in the payment details. So are you the only agent receiving this commission? Are you splitting the commission with another agent? You know, you can also add another agent for the agent. And this is just for your side of the transaction. I just want to highlight, all right? This is not talking about the other side. So you're not putting the agent on the other side of the transaction here. This is only for your side of the transaction. And again, that quick 10-minute tip video that I shared with you guys, that I'll show you in detail different situations. Like what if I want to split my commission? What if I want to pay an outside referral? So if you have any questions as you're going through this, of course, that was a super quick preview. Shoot me an email, guys. My email, I'm putting it back in the chat, really on anything that we talked about today. My name is Leah. Again, you can put that in the chat. My email is support@scottleroymarketing.com. I'd be more than happy to take a look at your account specifically. If you're running into any roadblocks, chances are I ran into those same roadblocks and have a workaround for you. So shoot me an email how I can help, any questions that you had on today's class, or if there's a question I didn't get to. Sorry, multitasking is hard, but I'm more than happy to help you guys with anything DocuSign opportunities. Just let me know, support@scottleroymarketing.com. All right, guys, so that will be the end of DocuSign 201, and I'll be sticking around for any additional questions and to highlight a couple tip videos for you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.